Oh my gosh, I want an Italian nonna.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I've got a very good one, so I cannot complain. She is just magical. Yes.
Hi, and welcome to Motherhood Around the World, a podcast that celebrates mums everywhere and dives into the nuance of parenting in different countries. This week we're speaking to Emiko. Born in Australia, she grew up in China and now lives in Italy with her husband and two girls aged 11 and 5. She originally worked as an art restorer and freelance writer, but since having children has published 6 cookbooks and has recently opened an enoteca with her husband in her village San Miniato in Tuscany. Emiko, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. You've been living in Italy, in Tuscany, since 2005, and your husband's Italian. So do you live close to family there? It takes a village to raise a child. What does your village look like over there, your support system?
I've been living mostly in Florence since 2005, where I met my husband, Marco. And then we decided to move to a small town during lockdown. So I think we did what a lot of other people did around that time. Well, actually, there were a lot of different things happening at that time, but one big one was lockdown, where we were separated from my mother-in-law and Marco's family, who lived in a town 45 minutes drive away. Not that far, but definitely not the 200 meters that you were allowed to move from your own door. And so for 3 months or so, we were completely separated. My mother-in-law was isolated because she lives completely on her own, and she really suffered during that time. So that was part of the reason why we thought it would be really important to us to move closer to family. So we're now, only 10 minutes away from my mother-in-law, and she is one of the reasons that I can do everything that I can do. She is a full-time nonna. She does homework with my kids. She picks them up from school. She looks after them at the drop of a hat. She's really, really amazing. So yeah, we really we wanted to be closer to her. Her grandkids are sort of her whole thing.
The
So
world, yeah.
yes, yeah. So that was part of that too.
And does she speak in Italian with the kids?
Yes, she does not speak any English at all. Even after all these years of having bilingual grandkids, I think the only word she's managed to pick up is like milk,
Yeah.
latte. She now hears, when she hears one of them say, "Can I have some milk?" She knows, and she'll grab the latte.
Oh, wow. Yeah, my mother was just here and it was really great because the kids weren't speaking a lot of English. They were speaking more in French, and she really got some English into them while she was here. So now they all have little Australian accents,
That's
which is
great.
quite funny. Yeah, her French is non-existent. Sorry, Mum. Tell me a little bit about your journey to pregnancy. Did you need any extra fertility support? Did you need extra healthcare support? Did you get access to everything you needed?
I did. And actually I have 2 very different experiences. My oldest daughter was born in Melbourne, and my youngest was born in Florence. And they were born 5.5 years apart as well. I just had very different experiences with both because of the places, and I think the way that the system works here in Italy as opposed to Australia. In fact, I mean, one of the reasons we moved to Australia was because I knew I wanted to sort of have a baby, and I sort of thought, even after all these years I'd been living in Italy, I just thought for that first experience, I really want to be at home and being able to express myself in English. And I don't know, I just sort of felt like that's what I wanted to do.
So how long did you go back for?
So 3 years. So 1 year before my daughter was born, and then then we left when she was 2. But it was interesting because I went through the public system, both places, and thank goodness, I had that choice. In Australia, the public healthcare I thought was really great. And also here in Italy. But let's say I had gestational diabetes with both
Oh,
pregnancies.
that's tough. Yeah.
And they were both managed in very different ways. I think just philosophies around how to manage that in both places. And yeah, that was probably the biggest difference for me, was how that was managed. And Italy is very, I think, overly cautious about everything. So there were many more ultrasounds, many more visits, just constant visits and measuring and weighing and testing and checking. And It's just like endless. Whereas in Australia, they really, I mean, I felt like I was really just left to be, unless there was something, that I needed to,
Yeah.
there was
Unless
some,
there was a problem, you were considered fine.
yeah, it was fine. So it was very cruisy. I think
Yeah.
my experience in Australia was it was really cruisy. I just went about my business until I developed gestational diabetes. And then after that, there were, a few more things that I had to check. But yeah, very cruisy as opposed to the Italian.
If you were in the public system in Australia, did you have midwife-led care for both in Australia and Italy?
Yes, I did.
How were you supported during your birth?
When I think back to that, I do feel like I had no idea what I was getting into or what I was up against, what I was up for, what was happening. And I do think that I had a much better experience in Italy with the birth. And I don't know, but I do suspect it was two things. It was my second time for one. So I kind of knew, what was about to happen.
Yeah.
And secondly, I do think that the support was better, and I mean I think it was a more difficult birth, the second one, but it was better in the whole experience.
Mine, they just ignored me in my second birth.
Well, yeah, yeah. I do feel like I definitely didn't really feel like I was in control in my first birth in Australia, and I was really just I felt clueless, and I felt like nobody was telling me or giving me everything. Like they were doing what they should be doing, but I just happened to be there,
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I felt then. Whereas the second time around, I don't know, I think just that also knowing what to expect is
Yeah.
something that makes such a big difference. But they were really, very the women who were helping me, they were really very, very good and very understanding and very helpful.
Perfect. So two very different experiences, but two healthy, happy babies.
Essentially, yes. Yeah.
Did you make friends while you were pregnant?
No, I didn't. Actually, the short version to that answer is no, I don't think so. I mean, the first time, funnily enough, we had just moved to Melbourne, which is not the city that I'm from. I'm from Canberra, and I had never lived in Melbourne. And so my husband had never lived in Australia. So, we were two new people to a new place. And it was very, very hard to meet people and sort of make friends. I was working as a freelancer, so I was at home all the time. My husband was working in hospitality, where it's kind of impossible to make friends, or at least like see them outside of work hours, because everybody is working crazy hours.
Yeah.
And I thought, when I got pregnant, I was like, oh, great. Now at least I'll meet the people in my mother's group, and I'll make all these friends at the playground. And that absolutely didn't happen at all. I mean, I was assigned a mother's group according to where I lived and the other people who happened to be pregnant at the same time. I think there were only 5 of us. So we would meet, but I think I was the only person who ever would sort of send a message around going, hi, does anyone want to come, go for coffee? Or
Yeah.
like crickets at the other end. And I think it's because it was really hard to sort of much like in Florence as well, it's hard to get into a group when they've already established friendships and they've been there their whole lives, and so they don't really need me like I sort of was looking to meet other people. So yeah, that's was my experience really in both cases. But with the second one, I already had my friends here in Florence, so that was very different. I didn't even bother going to the mothers groups actually.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm too busy. I've got this other kid to look after, and I'm just can't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No time to sit and have coffee and discuss our birth plans. Yeah.
No.
What was your experience like in the first few weeks after childbirth? Did you go straight home? How many nights did you stay in hospital? Did you go and stay with family?
No, I was really lucky I think with both of my births were very straightforward. I had no complications, not even any stitches, no tearing, nothing. So I kind of walked out of there.
Excellent.
A miracle.
Yeah.
No, I feel very, very lucky in both. And in both cases, I had a random situation where I just happened to be the only person in the room as well. So they let Marco stay the night both in Australia and in Italy. So that was really amazing to have him be there the night that the girls were both born. He was able to stay there, and I only stayed 2 nights for both of the births, and then waddled on home. And in Italy, that's it. You don't really, they don't come and check up on you. It's just
Oh, there's
like,
no follow-up midwife visits or anything.
I mean, you can, if you go to the hospital if you need anything else, but that's it. And in Australia, we had nurses come to do home visits. And I was so grateful to have that. I mean, they came and they helped. They had like a lactation specialist to come to make sure everything was going okay with breastfeeding. If you needed help, I'm forever indebted to those women who do that, and they come to your house just after you've given birth.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important part of feeling supported, because I mean, you come home and you're like, oh my God, what do I do with this thing? What have I gotten myself into, and how do we keep this alive? I was worried about everything and I had no idea what I was doing.
And you're exhausted and
I mean, completely sleep deprived for like 4 or 5 days straight. So you're just absolutely delirious by the time someone comes around to the door, and it was like, oh my God, thank you.
yeah.
For coming and helping me and showing me how to do this. And yeah, that was really important. I mean, with the second baby, even though I didn't get any support in Italy at all after the birth, I had my mum here visiting from Australia, and she was like sleeping in my daughter's bed because we were in this really tiny house, but just very silently, she was like a magical little fairy, just sort of tidying up, cooking, looking after my older daughter, putting her to bed. She just did everything. And the day that she left, I like cried all day because I just
Oh
thought,
no.
I don't know how I'm going to function now. So I feel like in Italy, they really, the health system really, they kind of depend on the fact that you're going to have, most Italian women have their entire family around them. I don't think that they are doing those extra things like sending out a lactation specialist or sending out a nurse to check up on you or just check on your stitches if you have them. Or I don't think that they do that because they assume that you've got help.
So they're almost counting on you having your little female village around you
Exactly.
right away.
Yeah, because I mean, most families do have that. They're usually living close to their, if not in the same place, very close to their parents, their grandparents, their aunts and uncles and cousins, and so there's usually a whole network of family members, which really we don't have usually. So
Yeah. Did you find it easy or hard to choose names? Did you go for very Italian names? Did you go for more Australian names?
So we decided that we wanted to have names that our families could pronounce. That was sort of the idea.
Yeah, my mum's still annoyed about that. I didn't do that.
For example, like Beth would be so hard for Italians to pronounce, or even my sister's name is Hannah. No one can pronounce that because they can't pronounce the H. So it becomes Anna. The TH is impossible. Yeah, so we wanted a name that everyone could pronounce. I quite liked Italian names, but then Italian girls' names are I always thought they were very limited. Everybody sort of has the same name here. Like my daughter grew up in a class with 5 Biancas, and there's like 2 Chiaras and 3 Francescas. Everybody has the the same name in Italy.
Yeah, yeah.
But particularly girls' names, I feel like they're very limited. And Marco had his heart set on a name which was very unusual, yet we thought would be doable for our families to pronounce, and was just very, I think, very original, which I liked. I've always liked having a name that was a bit different from everyone else's in my class. I know not everyone does, but I did. And I don't know, but I was really like, that for me, the name that we ended up going with was sort of my second choice. Marco's first from the beginning. And then I remember them asking me, right after I had just given birth, literally a minute before, and they were like, so what name, and I just went, oh my God, don't ask me anything right now. I don't care. I'm like, Marco, you just do it. And so he put down Mariu as my daughter's name.
My dad changed my name in Australia. My parents agreed on a name, and 2 weeks later, my dad went to register me, and he didn't choose the name they had negotiated on. He chose his first choice. Yeah, they didn't get divorced for another 3 children and 10 years. So,
well, the second name, I actually had my first daughter choose her name, and that was partly because I was worried she was going to maybe be jealous.
that's such a great idea. Could go horribly wrong, but it worked out well for you.
Said to her, so, if we let you choose the name, do you have an idea? I also thought maybe she'll have like some brilliant name will sort of come up, and I go, oh, that's actually really good. And she said, yes, she's going to be called Diamond Sparkle or something. And I was like, no, okay, wait. Out of these names, which one would you choose?
Yeah, let's
So
narrow the parameters.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So she picked Luna as as the name, and that's so we went, yep, okay, done. We've got our second child.
Yeah. Oh, I love the name Luna. That was on our list.
It's funny because in Italy it's not. Again, we wanted something that was a bit different. It's really not a name that's given to girls. It's a name given to pets. So we meet we meet a lot of dogs on the street called Luna.
What is the maternity leave situation in Italy?
The parental leave. So to be honest, I don't really know. Actually, I should know more about it. All I know is there's not a lot of parental leave for the father.
Mm-hmm.
I was working freelance at the time, so I just don't work, for those days, and I don't get paid during.
So there's no support for freelancers at all. There's no sort of, because in France you get a lump sum. You get paid as a freelancer for maternity.
That's nice. If I had known, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, not that I know of. I don't think that there is. I could be wrong about that.
So you would just basically figure it out.
Yes. And I think, oh my gosh, now I have to go back to my memory from like pre-COVID. But I think that my husband had maybe 2 weeks of parental leave. Parents can actually take off a set amount of time, but this would be leave without pay
Yeah.
up until the child is 6 years old. And you can take this leave without pay, which I think in total ends up being like 11 months. And you can take that, but you need to already be in a job that has a permanent contract, which is hard to come by initially. Like, really, it's not the norm. I think a lot of people are mostly working with temporary contracts, and you have to be able to take that leave without being paid as well. So we did use that sometimes when I needed to go to Australia for a large amount of time.
Once you were ready to return to work, what were your childcare options? Is childcare affordable in Italy? Is there any stigma one way or the other, whether women go back really quickly or take a really long time to go back?
I think people generally go back to work very quickly. I've heard a lot of people go back to work sort of when the child is 3 months old.
Yeah.
I think that's really really young. I really struggled with my first daughter. I had a part-time job, only working 2 days a week in Melbourne, and I went back to work when she was 6 months old, and I was still breastfeeding, and I found that really really hard to manage. In fact, it became so difficult that I just quit my job and stayed home for with her, and from then and until she went to preschool.
What age is preschool in Italy?
So preschool in Italy is quite early, and I think it's because of the childcare situation. So there is Nido, which is like early preschool, which you can choose to send them from 6 months onwards. But the regular preschool starts at the year that the child turns 3. My oldest was born in December, so she would have been, 2 and a bit, 2.5, more than, no, 2 3/4 or something, when school started. But you can choose to send them anytime. I didn't actually send her until she was 5. The last year of preschool in Italy would have been like kindergarten.
What age do they start school? Is that at 6?
At 6, yeah.
And what does a typical school day look like for your girls?
So wherever we've lived, because we've now lived in Florence and now in San Miniato, and I've got now a middle schooler and a preschooler, and they have quite different schedules. But until this year, both the girls would be home for lunch. So they were coming home at 12.
Every day.
Every day. So one of them came home at 12:30 and the other one at 12:50.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. So I only had really my mornings free, and then they were home. And this is why I love my mother-in-law so much, because she was really very, very helpful in, taking them for the afternoon.
Oh, wow. So it was literally a morning.
Just the morning, yeah. So my oldest daughter had one day where she would stay at school till 5. And then all the other 4 days, 12:50, she was out. And then the little one was 12, coming out around 12:30. But now she's in until 3:30. So we've got this year. One of them now, the older one comes out of middle school, but she walks herself home, and she comes out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then the other one comes out at 3:30.
Wow, that's still really early.
Yeah, yeah.
If you don't have your mother-in-law who lives right nearby and you love, Is there a top-up option for extra hours at the school, or do people get nannies, or does one of the family members just have to figure it out and work from home or work around the schedule?
Yeah, it's basically, it's not at the school. There's no like after school, at least where our schools are, but there are like walking distance from the school. There are like associations. Actually, they're usually volunteer associations that do things like they look after the kids after school. One of them even, they have kids there until about 6 p.m. so that parents who are working or, they can come and pick them up directly at 6 p.m. There's another service where there's like a gym that takes kids, they pick them up in their, like they've got a school bus, so they'll pick them up directly from school and they take them to the gym, and then they do all these activities until 6 o'clock also at the gym. And so my youngest does that. She does that one day a week.
Which is so funny because here 6 p.m. is totally standard. It's 5:45 and my mother-in-law has just gone to pick up the kids now, and they could stay till 6:30, no problem.
I mean, the thing is, it's you have to also have so much money, I think, to afford these after-school activities.
Oh, here it's free.
Oh my goodness. So
Sorry,
these are
not free. I misspeak. I think it's about €5 a day.
wow.
Yeah, and they get afternoon snack, they play games, and it's in the school.
That's a very nice thing to have. Yeah, where we are, these are definitely like things that come out of your pocket.
And it just feels like it's quite hard to get a full work day in.
Oh, yeah. 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 If you add in like the school bus or this bus that takes your kid to the gym and looks after them till 6 o'clock, and you have the bus and they're going once a week, I think it's like 65, €70 a month for them to get picked up and looked after for one day.
Yeah. So then you have to make an extra €140 to pay €70 after tax. What do you need to provide for the school? Do they get packed lunches? Are they fed? What do they eat?
Oh yeah, no, school is they just go to school and they give them the snacks. This is for the preschool anyway. They give them snacks, which is usually fruit or yogurt, and then they give them lunch, which is where all the kids are sitting down. Everyone gets the one same lunch. It's not like they don't have a cafeteria. These are like old buildings, so the food comes in, and it gets distributed. Basically what they have is what they have. At elementary school and middle school, I think they bring their own snacks for recess.
Mm-hmm.
And then lunch is this sort of similar format. But now that my older daughter is in middle school, she comes home for lunch at 2 p.m., like usually ravenous. So,
yeah, 2 p.m. seems quite late for lunch.
Yeah.
What are your options when they're sick? I'm going to guess that you just have to figure it out.
You just have to figure it out. Yep. And I think that it's the same for most people. If they don't have a nonna or somebody nearby, they're just stuck at home.
Do children do a lot of activities there? Not the sort of after school activities that we were talking about to keep them under childcare, but are they doing ballet or art classes or archery or?
Yeah, I would say there is a lot of that. Also because those kind of activities are not offered at school. Like if you want to learn a musical instrument, the parent has to pay for that and take their kid to a place to do that. If you want to learn a sport, you have to do that on your own terms outside of school. It's not part of the school curriculum to be doing all these kind of extra things, interesting things. So yeah, there is a lot of that. There's kind of everything you could do, roller skating to theater to ceramics and all of the sports. And yeah.
Do you have a car, and are you constantly driving, or are you just sort of using it on weekends for trips away? Can you walk the kids to school?
So I actually don't drive. I've never driven, but until I moved to this small village, I've always lived in a place where walking or public transport is actually easier than driving around with a car. So I'm finding myself in a bit of difficulty now here because it would be good to be driving places. Except, okay, school, we can walk to school, and that's been really great. So my daughter, my eldest one, just walks herself actually to and from school because it's so close, and that's just been so great. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, where I live, we really do need a car, and to be able to do activities like we were talking about you need a car to take them places.
What do you do for holidays? How long do Italian kids get for holidays?
Oh my God, I could do a whole podcast just on Italian holidays because it's a nightmare. So Italians lump all of their holidays into the summer. We have 3.5 months of summer holidays.
Oh, wow.
They get off the first week of June and they don't go back until after mid-September. And often it's like that, depending on the calendar year, it'll be like, the 17th or the 18th or the 19th of September when they start school again. It is such a long time to be doing nothing. And I think it's really, really difficult to manage. Also, because in Italy, there's this August holiday is the time of the year when like literally everything shuts down. So there are no summer camps. There's really nothing. August, you're really, really stuck if you're a working parent and you haven't also booked your holidays for August.
Yeah.
You're really, really stuck. There's just no options for any kind of childcare or summer camps because everything shuts down. I think it's a real problem. Italy is so the Italian school system is so stuck in the 1800s when it was basically developed. And these long summer holidays were actually because so many families were agricultural families. They needed the kids to work on the farm because it was harvest time. So you harvest the grain, you're harvesting the grapes, you're doing all of this work for your family. And so they needed the kids to be at home. And they had these long summer periods for that reason. And it's like, well, now we've got all these working parents who are like, where am I going to put my kids for the month of August? There's literally no one who could look after them unless you have a relative who has a house at the beach and you can just chuck them over there.
You know what the solution is? You need to just start planting some olive trees or get those kids harvesting.
Right. That would be, at least they'd have something to be doing.
Okay, 3 months. And then throughout the rest of the year, do they get just like a week here and there?
Not even a week. They get a handful of days, so a spattering of days. So, for example, Easter is coming up. They get the Thursday and the Friday and the Monday off. That's it. There's no time to go anywhere. There's no time to do anything. It's just sort of a couple of days. That's all. And there's a few religious holidays and public holidays, which means they'll get like a long weekend.
Yeah.
That's it.
Is that quite hard for the kids? Do they end up just exhausted by May?
Exactly that. Yeah. So by May, their last holidays finished on the 6th of January. They are really, really exhausted. I see it even by sort of April, like those Easter holidays are just not long enough to do anything or, properly rest. And then so by sort of April, you can see them, they're tired, they're exhausted. I think it's really hard. I think it would be so nice to just have those holidays distributed a little more evenly throughout the year. Even Christmas, a little bit more time there would be so good. But they literally have sort of Christmas Eve, they go on holiday, and then they're back on the 6th of January. They follow the religious holidays.
So there's no quick trip to Australia for you?
No, I had to take my kids out of school when I went to Australia late November and stayed until Christmas, and just had to get my daughter to take absences, which is hard now because now she's got to like not be sick because otherwise she'll repeat her year. So
You used up your credits.
we basically have, yeah.
Who speaks what language with who in the household?
So we all speak English together. We decided to do this when my oldest daughter was born and we were living in Australia. We wanted her to have enough Italian. So we decided to speak Italian as a family at home. And she would speak English with my parents or anyone else that we were with. But when we decided to move back to Italy when she was 2, I thought, no, now she's not going to speak English. So we decided to just switch and speak only English at home. And so we just did that switch. And it was very, very natural, actually, because Marco and I are both bilingual. We would sort of speak both languages equally to each other anyway. So deciding to switch into just English at home, we've just done that ever since then. And now I think the girls have really, English is their mother tongue. That's the language that somebody asked them recently. So now I know this answer, but somebody asked them, what language do you dream in? And they said immediately English. So
That's
I
nice.
think that is their sort of their mother tongue, which often surprises Italians because their Italian is also mother tongue. I mean, it's also perfect. I mean, really, like all of their day is really in Italian and until they're at home. And even now, with my mother-in-law, with their friends, with their other family members, it's only Italian.
You and Marco work together. You have your enoteca. Working together parenting together, what is the split sort of housework wise, work wise? How do you make it work? How do you formulate it for your family?
I think I've been quite lucky because Marco, I think, is not your regular Italian husband. From, the many things I've heard from my friends and seen, a lot of Italian husbands expect their wife to be like their mother, sort of picking up after them and doing everything while they just sit there. Very, very common still in this day and age, which is maddening. But Marco is luckily not like that, and we've always sort of divided everything sort of evenly, and I would just honestly kick up a stink if I felt like he hasn't been pulling his weight. And so then he would get in there and do it. I'm also really lucky because Marco's loves being in the kitchen. He's great at cooking, and we share that both at work and at home. And so when we're doing cooking classes together, we're really working together. We're doing those things together when we're doing workshops as well. And then when we're at home, it's also like, yeah, who wants to cook dinner tonight? You're going to do it? Shall I do it? And then usually whoever does the cooking, the other one will clean up afterwards. I do feel like we have that like teamwork thing sort of down, both at home and at work. And we've just been so well practiced at it over the years, even with our workshops and cooking classes before having kids and having to look after a household of 4 people.
You're clearly an excellent cook, we know. How do your kids eat? Are they involved in the shopping? Are they involved in the cooking?
Usually Marco does all of the shopping. Because he's got the car.
Yeah.
Not here. I mean, unless I go to the market, I love being able to walk to the market, and that's fine. When the girls were little, they loved coming along to the market with me as well. Now they're usually at school when we go out and do all of the shopping and things like that. Luna, I would say both the girls, when they were sort of this age, Luna's 5 now. When they were that age, also Mariu, they were so helpful in the kitchen and love, what are you doing? Can I help? What's that? Can I mix that thing? Like, that's Luna's thing. Anytime she sees me in the kitchen, which is every day often, she'll just be like, oh, what's that? Can I help? And she'll pull up her chair without even knowing what it is that I'm doing. So it might be like a fish or something. And she doesn't care. She's in there. She's curious. So she'll be there. Can I help you? I want to do this. She's great at doing the dishes. She will spend hours doing the dishes.
Perfect.
It's like, for her, I think it's like water play, so she's like bubbles and water, and so she will scrub those things. Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
Now I have to say my oldest one, who is a proper tween, she's 11, is a lot less interested in helping around at the kitchen now, but she used to be just like her little sister. So I think that when I'm working on a cookbook, which is what I've been doing since my kids were 2, I've sort of had to get them involved in whatever it was I was doing, because I always had them hanging around at my feet.
For those 3-month holidays.
Yes. And we live in a small place. It's a small Italian flat. They're all small. There's sort of nowhere to go to like be on your own and get away from it. So I almost had to, by necessity, have them be involved in what I was doing just so I could get on with what I was trying to do.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
otherwise they would want my attention. They want to sit there. They want me to sit there with them. So I'd be encouraging them to get involved. And I've always done that. And it's been good. I mean, it does mean sometimes I slow down, but at least I can get things done. And I've been able to do by myself a lot just by sort of getting them involved. And so they've been sort of used to that. They're not the best eaters, I think. I mean, I have written about this quite a lot on my blog in the past, but I think my older daughter had a lot of eating preferences. I think when I read about this very recently, about an eating disorder called ARFID, ARFID, when I read those sort of symptoms, I look back at that now and I go, oh, that's actually what she had. That so describes her. It's basically, I mean, it can take lots of different forms, but it's almost like a fear of eating, preference for very particular things that have something to do with the texture or sort of the sensory issues around eating. And this sort of peaked between when she was like 6 in particular. So I would say like 4 to 8 was really intense. And now she's thankfully out of that, and she's much easier going. I'm an actually great eating partner now. But for many years, it was very, very difficult. So even though people would say that to me all the time, oh, your kids must be such great eaters.
Yeah, you've published.
They see all this.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It wasn't the case. But I do think that for me, anyway, it was really important to involve her in all aspects of sort of the food shopping, choosing things that she could choose at the market, smelling things, cutting them, helping me cook them, so that she still had this, relationship with the food. Even if she didn't eat it at the end, she knew what things smelt like, how they should be cooked, what they looked like. I still do think that was really important in helping her. She's sort of embracing all kinds of flavors and things that I never dreamed. I mean, I never imagined after having gone through what we did that she would. But yeah, she just put chili crisp on her sandwich today at lunch, and I was like, amazing, that's so great. So yeah.
Because you've just published your 5th cookbook?
Sixth.
6th. Oh
Yeah.
my God. And this one was based on Japanese food?
Yes. Yeah.
Which I'm assuming it's quite hard to get the ingredients that you want over there.
Well, yeah, it's much harder. It's really hard to actually eat good Japanese food here. So it's something I've usually made at home. And I mean, for me, Japanese food is sort of home cooking. It's the food that my mum often made for us as kids, and it's the food that I make when I'm feeling like a bit homesick or just a bit nostalgic. And yeah, I mean, I think now it's getting a lot easier to get ingredients because you can order things online, and that's become so much easier than, even 5 years ago. But also, I think Japanese home cooking, you don't need too many unusual ingredients. You can really get away with just having the basics, like some soy sauce and some miso, and you can really put together something that tastes like or reminds me of my mom or reminds me of home.
Do your kids do chores?
Oh, okay. So I just had this talk with my tween. I mean, I would say that she was so much more helpful when she was younger.
Yeah.
Like the little one. The little one, does the dishes, she sees me hanging out the clothes, she wants to help and is like in there, can I help you? I'm like, thank God. Whereas with my older daughter now, it's like literally I have to bribe her to like get her to help me put something together. And she just hung out the washing this afternoon, and I had to tell her, there are these studies that say you'll be a happier adult if you did chores as a child. She just looked at me and said, no, I'm sure that's just something that somebody said to make children do chores.
Yeah, exactly. Sure, Mom.
Up against now, yeah.
What's bedtime generally?
Bedtime is still such a big thing that I battle with every day. And I think in general, Italian kids go to bed really quite late compared to, how Australian kids would go to bed. I think when I was a kid, I think my bedtime was like 7:30 or something. It was really, really early. And at that hour, most Italian kids haven't had their dinner even yet. Most people are coming home from work at that hour. And so by the time they're cooking their dinner and then they sit down for dinner, it's usually like 8 o'clock is like a normal Italian dinner time for kids, even with preschoolers. And it's something that I think is very cultural, because dinner time is sort of the only time people can have a meal together. So they'll be waiting. My neighbors, they wait for both mum and dad to come home from work so that they can eat together. So they've got 2 kids that are younger than mine, and they don't eat dinner until about 8:30.
And dinner's not quick either.
No, it's not. It's not quick. And so by the time you've had your dinner, prepared the dinner, eaten it together, and then you get ready for, I mean, it's you go to bed really, like young children are going to bed at sort of 9:30 in Italy. And my kids are I'm forcing them to bed at 10:30.
Yeah. And then you really get 0 evening time either for yourself.
There is non-existent evening time. Yeah.
How does society view kids in Italy? Are kids welcome everywhere, or do you feel you have to go to sort of kid-only spaces? Are people helpful? Are people kind?
No, I would say Italy is super family friendly. I mean, kids are welcome everywhere. Restaurants, will have that they'll always have, even if they don't have an actual kids menu, they'll always have something. They'll go, oh, would they rather have a pasta al pomodoro, or something like that. They always accommodate children. They've always got high chairs. The thing that I think is really difficult is when you have young kids and just very practical things like the space to push a pram down a footpath. That doesn't exist even in Florence, or a changing table in a public bathroom. That's non-existent as well. And you'd be lucky to have enough space in a public toilet, or not in a public toilet, but even in a toilet in a bar or a cafe, to be able to do things like that. I think that those kind of things just are really, really hard. Italy is not made for accommodating things like prams or babies that are outside of their house. And I think that's because most Italians would be not far from home, not really needing things like a change table in the middle of a big city, or things like that, I think have been taken for granted a bit. But people's attitudes to kids is Italy loves kids. Italians love kids. I remember being in Rome with my daughter when she was a toddler. She must have been about 18 months old, and she wouldn't sit still at that point because she'd just learned how to walk, and I'm going for
On
a
the
walk
go, yeah.
all the time. And we were just at a really casual pizzeria, so obviously can't eat anywhere fancy with a kid like that. But I just remember these young Roman waiters who must have been 20, maybe 21, really young. They just looked after her the whole meal. They were playing with these guys. I was like, I just cannot picture this happening in Australia. I don't think that this would happen, where these two young guys who are meant to be working are spending their time actually playing with my toddler, keeping her in the vicinity and out of trouble, going out of their way. They gave her some pizza dough to play with, just generally looking after her so that we could have a pizza in peace. It was really amazing.
Yeah, really nice. Really nice until you need to change your nappy.
Yes, exactly. So don't go too far from your hotel if you're staying in Italy,
Yeah. What does a typical weekend look like for you?
Well, we have the Enoteca open. We open in the evenings though. So the Saturday during the day is the day we go around, usually getting things done for the girls. I've just recently started taking my older daughter to a therapist on the weekend. So her session times are at Saturday morning. While she's doing that, I go take Luna to a ceramic class. So they've both got something to do on the Saturday morning, and we can get that's our sort of chance to sort of take them out and do those things. And then Sunday is our we have no plans day. I always want to have a day of the week when there's no plans. It's really important, I think, for me to have that day when you're like, oh, what are we going to do today? Oh, we could do it. The possibilities are
endless.
Yeah.
And also good to give kids a bit of boredom.
Yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. So that day will be a day based on what everyone sort of feels like doing. So if it is a day when nobody feels like going out, then we'll just sort of lounge about at home. Or if it's a beautiful day and we're like, let's go to the beach, then we can just get in the car and do that. Sundays are good days, I think, because it's sort of that open-ended, what do we feel like doing today?
Being a mum can be quite isolating. Do you have any local communities or support networks around you for families and childcare?
No, I mean, I would say it would be Nonna. It would be Nonna is all of the above.
What's the government support for families like in Italy?
The government gives you, it's like I think it's similar to sort of like the baby bonus, where they do give you a set amount of money per child until the child is 18 or so. I can't remember it now actually off the top. I should know these things, but my husband usually deals with them, and it's less than what you get in Australia. It is something. I mean, it barely covers the costs of like the school books and all the school things that you have to buy. They do give you this sort of a bonus for each child every month, but I think it's very small, and maybe it helps a little bit, but it doesn't cover at all the cost of childcare or the school materials or just sort of these everyday things. Yeah.
Do the kids wear uniforms to school there?
No, they don't. They don't have any uniforms, but they have a smock, which is just it's a color for each school. So it might be white. It's usually white, or it's blue, or it's black maybe. And it's like a smock that you wear over the top of your whatever clothes you're wearing. And you wear those until middle school.
Oh, is that to keep them clean, or is that just to show you what group they're in?
I think it's to keep them clean. But
let's say that it's something nice for the mothers. Yeah.
Yeah. My little one refuses to wear it, so she's the only one in her class that doesn't wear one.
I gotta say, I have never met you. I've never met your kids, but Luna seems like she has such a great personality.
Yeah, she's she knows what she wants
Yeah.
and she will fight for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
She knows how to say no. That's going to be so important later in life.
Yeah. Boundaries.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd change in Italy at a policy level, apart from the school holidays?
I would change the whole school system. I think the whole school system is actually it really needs like a whole overhaul. I don't think Italians are really getting what they should out of school. It's so old-fashioned. It looks exactly the way that it did 150 years ago. Even the way that the benches are still set up the same way that they always were. There's not no, it's so rigid. There's no interaction allowed. You're not allowed to talk. There's no sort of group interactions except for like a 10-minute recess. There's all these things, so many tests, so much homework, just constant homework. I don't think that you see the results of all of this work and this pressure in any positive ways. What is the sense of giving primary school children all this homework? Are they geniuses? No, they're not. They're not coming out geniuses on the other end. It's just so much pressure. I don't know. It's not fun. It's not fun. And the kids are not enjoying school. They're not enjoying what they're learning. My daughter does really, really well in school. She actually gets really, really good grades, but she's not having fun. It's boring. And just, I think the whole system just sort of crushes a lot of very sensitive souls or kids who are very creative or who are, slightly neurodivergent. It's not made for them. It's at all. You have to choose what vocation you want to go into in middle school.
So it's like science or humanities. And then
Yeah.
once you've done that, there's no backtrack.
Yeah, so you go to high school and you're in a science high school, or you're at the linguistics high school, or you're at the classical high school, so you kind of, there's an accounting high school, so you kind of have
Yeah.
to
How
know,
many 12-year-olds are choosing that?
you know. I've always wondered, but we have an accounting high school here in San Miniato. That would be the one walking distance from our house. And
Oh
that's the
no.
way I'm raising two accountants. So
Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law. What do you love the most about being a mom in Italy?
I do love, I mean, I sit here complaining about all these things, but what I do love about being a mum in Italy is that it is such a friendly, family friendly place. Family really is one of the most important things in Italian society, and people are so kind and happy towards your children. If we walk into a shop, people we don't even know, they'll always dote on the children. And I mean, I think part of that is this whole sort of, in Italian culture, there's the whole sort of the mythical mama, it's just like a supernatural being, which is quite amazing to be a mama in Italy and be seen like that. But yeah, I love that family is such an important part of Italian culture, and it really is looked up to and upheld and appreciated. Yeah.
Nice to be appreciated as a mom.
Yeah.
What is your biggest fear raising kids in Italy?
I think I probably have several. I think that what I worry about is that they don't have opportunities here. I think that Italy is beautiful and as wonderful place, and as good as the food is, it is a place where it's not easy to make your own opportunities. It's not easy to just have them fall into your lap. It's not easy to try something and realize you've made a mistake. You need to try something else. Nothing like that is easy in Italy. I don't actually think it's a very easy place to live if you are trying to also earn a living. If you're not, then it's probably a great place to live. But if you're trying to earn a living and you want to make something of yourself, you really have to work really, really hard. I think you just have to have also luck. I also really worry about the fact that Italy is such a patriarchal society and women are really still underpaid, are not given the same opportunities as men. I mean, I think worldwide, but I think Italy is really, 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 really behind the times in so many ways. Because I'm raising two girls, that is something that is always on my mind. There is a lot of violence towards women in Italy, which I don't think is anything sort of news that people really hear about
No,
outside of it.
I would never have thought that.
Yeah, a lot of violence towards young women in particular, femicide, a lot of domestic violence. And yeah, it's not something that people know about Italy, but it is very, very present and very frightening, I think, because it's matched with this very strongly patriarchal society as well.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of change on the horizon, perhaps.
Really none at the moment. It's very, very depressing, actually, the way that the Italian politics are going at the moment.
Wow, my last question is a fun one. Are there any animal noises in Italian that are different to how you think they would be?
Oh yeah, the dog bark is bow bow.
Bow bow, so not woof woof.
No, and it's spelled B-A-U, B-A-U.
Yeah.
And the rooster.
What does the rooster say?
Rooster says kikiriki.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny because in French it's coquericou, which is always also weird.
Yeah. That sounds a bit more like cock-a-doodle-doo.
It does, exactly. Oh my gosh, how funny. I love that question. Cool. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me so much time as well. I've like seen the sun setting
I
behind
know
you.
now it's suddenly gone really dark and I'm
Yeah.
far away from the light. So it's
Yeah. We like started at daytime and now it's nighttime. So I'll let you get back to your family. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
great. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, please rate, review, and subscribe, which will help other people find us. See you next week.